Hello, Syzygy Podcast. Today we have special guests, Shannon and Stephen. We're here to talk about something that I've joked about writing a book, and it's called A Guide to Dating a Mystical Woman. And
I would read that.
um, yeah, so why this conversation's coming up, and we're just here as friends to talk about it, is because Stephen and I both have had a similar experience. We're veterans now. We got this, and it's like we come from this strict, dogmatic, maybe even Christian background. We're very linear, and then we meet these amazing mystical women who are giving us a bunch of different verbiage, telling us they can read our energy. And it's both the most exciting thing and it's chaotic, like as if I'm on an ayahuasca trip. So in that, it's a deeper love. So we just wanted to sit and chat about what it's like to date a mystical woman, and then maybe from the women's perspective, what it's like to be encountered by that immovable structure. So, and this is where there's a syzygy, a play of opposites that need each other, like the moon and the sun, and that's where we're going to start. Nadi and or Shannon, would you like to describe what being a mystical woman means to you?
I've been I've been having this question all morning. I've been like, who's gonna answer, me or Shannon? Me or Shannon?
We have 3 hours for this, right? I feel like that's the amount of time. Well,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, let me, Nadi, if you have it, go for it.
Yeah,
I
do
think
it.
that there's a lot of pieces I want to sit with as well in that.
Okay, there's the piece that while I was pre-gaming for this, the piece that I wanted to mention was that a mystic is someone who follows the heart into the unknown. And I think that that's what Shannon and that's how we met. We literally met in the unknown, following our hearts. We were on a solo trip, both of us individually on a solo trip at a very poignant part of our lives. I was going through a divorce and Shannon was spreading her, can I say it?
Yeah, please, of
Yeah,
course.
so Shannon was on a pilgrimage or of sorts to follow in the journal that her mother had written to spread her mother's ashes. So we were both at a very poignant time in our lives. We met in a stunning spot in Big Sur. Like we never ever would have found one another if not for absolute destiny. We were in a very far off like place. We had both followed our hearts there. So we are two people that follow our hearts, and then we're both standing on the cliffside with the waves coming up and the sun's going down and Shannon spreading her mom's ashes, and it's just her and me on this rock on this rock. And like we had to go on a whole journey to get to this rock. It's not just like you get out of your car. It's like you go on a whole hike. And it's just her and me. And I turned to her, I'm like, I've got a message for you. And I just started speaking to her, and then we spent the rest of like 48 hours together. And
Yeah.
we were both on solo trips, so we weren't actually spending a lot of time with other people. So this was a really big deal that we were like, you, me, forever. So yeah, that's what I want to say, is that we follow our hearts and we trust in the guidance that comes from that, and we trust where that goes, and we trust our ability to communicate. And Shannon and I both have a very high level emotional intelligence, so we've got that. We also struggle with very similar things. It's like being a mystical woman comes with some struggle buses, and that's also part of it. So that's
Especially in
that's
today's
where,
society,
what'd you say, Stephen?
especially in today's society and the culture that we live
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll pass it on to you.
Thanks, Nadi. That was a beautiful introduction too, and brought my heart back to our space of meetings. So thank you for that. Yeah, oh my gosh, there's so many things that when you asked this, Nick, my brain was like percolating. So I love the idea of unconditional love and like being guided. And so it's this opportunity to listen to the whispers of your soul, which is everything, right? And at the same time, the most scariest things. There's pieces, like you said, when we're talking about like society and what that judgment is, we do things in a very weird way. We check in constantly. What is my body telling me? And what our bodies are telling us isn't always what our logical mind would say would be the right next step, right? And so it's almost an internal battle too, as we step into the mystical woman of really deepening in the trust and the surrender of those mystical words, of those, that knowing that that is coming from some other part of us, this divine source, this gnosis, right? And that for society, like when you're like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with the next step, but I'm a projector, so I'm meant to be invited. So I'm gonna wait until I'm seen in the world. Okay, let's wait for that. And also like once I'm seen, now my genius is online. So okay, I'm gonna like wait and listen to what the next step is. And the intuition piece comes in hand, which I really had to harness, which I didn't even have to the fullest degree when I met you, Nadi, was the understanding of my body is telling me something that makes no sense, that literally makes no sense. And then there's this now my Shannon self is like, so I have to go for it actually, because that's actually true. And then it's the extra piece of like, as you do the thing that makes no logical sense, you get to be rewarded, like synchronicity to happen, the right people, places, like literally, Nadi, the fact that I met you on that day, like I couldn't find campground. I was stuck at a restaurant trying to figure out where to go. And my heart was just like, just get to Big Sur, just get to Big Sur. There's something there for you. And I even wanted to do that hike that was across the way that you had done the day before that was way longer. And I got there too late and I was like, sad. I was almost like mad at myself, like you didn't plan, because I was trying to test my surrender. How much can you surrender and not plan, Shannon? And so then to find you in that space and the message that you had for me was so powerful that day, with everything I was being with my mom. So yeah, so Mystical Woman, I feel like it's not only listening to what's inside, it's also listening to what's around you, because your external environment is a representation of your internal world. And so being called that day to just go to Big Sur allowed me to meet this amazing goddess who then had a beautiful message, something that I was already struggling with in my mind. And it really allowed me to see through that lens to be like, whoa, yeah, let's hit that. And then we did a full moon ceremony. We were like in it, but like all that was like appreciation of nature and earth and the depths of who we are. And so I guess there's this other piece of Mystical Woman of like, who are you? Like this desire to know, but also not be attached to knowing. So there's like, yeah, there's so many different places and spaces. And I think really coming from just listening and honoring, and not only listening to the inner, but also listening to nature around you and what is happening. What are the subtle signals that maybe you're not even catching? And so that kind of makes me think of a Mystical Woman.
What's neat about it is how both of your stories is an example of the Mystical Woman, and I think the benefits of being one, in that you both were on a journey and you listened. You were going through divorce, right? You're grieving your mother, and like were called, like the intuition, right? Your body was like, no, I have to go do this. And then look at what the universe, or Mama Gaia, or I say God, provided for you, right? Was like these missing pieces that you healed. And now here we are, what, a year or two later, and there's this beautiful friendship that's come from that. So in a way, it just completely validates the life of the Mystical Woman, because look at what was provided from you deciding to follow the call, you know, that you felt in to go on this journey. And there's something really beautiful about that, even just seeing you two as a part of it.
Yeah, there's I have a mentor who's very much a Mystical Woman, and she's developed a couple of things came up while you're talking. One of the things is, like you said, this culture. In an older culture, maybe like ancient Greece or even Peru and indigenous, you would have been recognized and then initiated into some sort of training that would have allowed you to harness that surrender, so it doesn't have to feel like chaos. So it only probably feels like chaos because you didn't get trained. You got put into 3D culture and whatever that looks like. But she's really cultivated this attitude of she walks with God no matter what. So she doesn't have the internal dialogue of, will I receive? What do I do? And I spoke to her and I was like, okay, so what's different between men and women here? And I'm thinking hunter-gatherer, hunter-gatherer. So gatherer is talking to the trees, knowing the tree will deliver the fruit. The hunter is somewhat in a space of, that thing is trying to get away from me. I have to chase it down. So it's learning as a man to adopt that maybe even the thing I'm hunting wants to offer itself to me. And in there lies probably one of the first, if there are men out there that have just encountered their first Mystical Woman, the first thing you said is, you guys are really comfortable with surrender and not knowing. And in my space, I saw the eye roll. In my space, I'm like, what do you mean day by day? What do you mean you don't have a plan? You have nothing, you don't have a briefcase? Like, what are you thinking? And it's so destabilizing for me as a man that was in the military, for me as a man that grew up with a mom that worked in a bank, a father that was a police officer, a stepmom was a school teacher. Planning was everything. So to hear someone say, we're just gonna like see what tomorrow brings, I'm like,
Really go
what?
with the flow and feel by intuition. You're like, yeah, like
Yeah, yeah. You're free diving. You're like, we're diving without a parachute. Got it. And Nadi's and I's first compromise was just how to schedule a date, which was I said, when can I see you next? She said, I don't plan until the day of. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. So we at least came up with a plan. Like, can you let me know within 48 hours? Can you feel into it? That's how I was saying it. If you want to see me within the day and time that I offer. So, Stephen, what was that like for you to just be like, no plan? What is going on?
oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, there's so much here. I feel like I need about 30 minutes.
Okay, you still got PTSD. Got it.
No, actually. Because the truth is it was really profound for me.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. Where do I want to start?
Yeah.
You know, before we started recording, Nick, you said something that really resonated with me, that Nadia has being in her orbit has expanded your faith, like it's helped you understand it better. And I think that's a really good place for me to start, because that resonates with me deeply. Like seeing Shannon live in such a place of surrender, and to use the Judeo-Christian doctrine, like a place of faith. Like I literally live by faith alone is one of my creeds, and something I try to live by. And Shannon, and literally within 5 minutes, I could tell it's about Nadia, embody that like in a really beautiful way. And I want to tie that to what it says in Corinthians that usually bump a lot of Christians, is that verse about wives submit to your husbands, and husbands sacrifice essentially for your wife. That's usually like one of the most triggering verses that you bring up, especially in today's society. Like the idea of a woman surrendering to a man is like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no. But I think what's misunderstood about that, and I could like literally already feel the flames of saying this, but when it's done in a way that's divine, when Shannon shared this a couple weeks ago that I loved, is the idea of the feminine energy goes first in this flow, fearless state, and that calls in the masculine, like that draws and attracts the masculine. And if you think about surrender in that way, of like Nadia and Shannon live in this place of just pure feminine flow, divine energy, like live by faith and trust and follow my intuition and all is well. And that, yeah, I like literally could get emotional about it. Like that calls me and invites me in the safest way possible to literally want to sacrifice for her, like to want to put her above myself, like to want to meet her needs. And there's this other, I'm gonna keep being biblical. I think there's this verse in the Bible, I don't remember where it is, that speaks about how men should look at their partner as the mare on a battlefield. And to give the historical context behind that, those days wars were fought, in lines, and you had cavalry and the infantry in the front. And before the battle would start, they would release mares, which are basically like the most beautiful horses, to run across the battlefield that would draw the chariots, like the stallions that were pulling the generals. They were like, oh shit, and like go after the mare, because they were like, I don't care about the battle, look at that mare. And that would literally wreck like strategic lines at the battlefront. And to make the connection there, like the idea of like, that's how I see Shannon. Like I truly do. I don't have eyes for other women. And because she's so in her divine and like this beautiful being of light and love and truth and dating a mystical woman is like that. It's jarring, and it's at times I'm like, wait, what? Like it's a total re-narratization of how I even have engaged with females in the past, yeah, and there's something really beautiful and divine about that. What's interesting too, I'll put a bow on it, I promise, is when they say, use words like I pause and I feel and I don't plan and I flow and it's what I'm called to, what's missing from there is this understanding that takes unbelievable courage, like unbelievable faith and bravery. And and that's so inspiring, A, and B, Nick, I'm sure you can relate to this. I just translate that as God, as like, as divine, as calling, right? Because we know from the men of the Bible and women of the Bible, right? That I think of Moses and Daniel and David and Solomon and Abraham, right? Like they were called, literally called, like that's what they would do, is like called into the fire. And they were like, this is Job, right? This is nuts. Like this is, she literally said that, like, this is insane, right? But I know what my body is telling me, or what I would say is the Holy Spirit is telling me, is guiding me to do. And so I have literally become a stronger man of faith. Like my belief system has gotten stronger because I am dating a mystical woman, and I see how radically she listens to her, her intuition, her body. Did that make sense? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. I would say something similar, but my approach was, everyone approaches that faith space different, is I didn't really feel like Nadi was ever, even now, I don't feel like she's ever truly calling me to be something that can fulfill her need. She's calling me to my own surrender, my own magic, my own place, and that place of like, oh, I don't need to do anything for you. I can just get bigger myself. And the byproduct will be that I'm now holding your flow in a sense of safety. And then I see the on the yogi way, like there's Shiva Shakti, or like the masculine feminine, and it's seen as Shakti is sitting on the lap of Shiva. So Shiva's that consciousness in which
Yeah.
Shakti creates with. And then if I think scientifically, there's the Fibonacci sequence. It's order, and within that sequence, there's infinite creativity within the universe. So I see that constant order and the constant flow together. And I think that's kind of where maybe Shannon and Nadi call us in, is
Yeah.
to give them a little bit of a heartbeat, a drum beat. So like, oh, okay, so flow doesn't have to mean chaos. It can still have an order. It can still be safe. And yeah, so my own faith has increased because I was no longer putting it on her to be my source. I was like, God is my source, and whether we're together or not, or there's money in the bank or not, I get to just constantly adopt that same faith and be like, I'm walking with God no matter what. Whatever is I'm seeking is seeking me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Please. Love that.
I also I want to tag off of something that you said, Steve, and I think the other piece of like surrender and trust in a partnership is something that I just want to dabble with a little bit there, since you brought that quote up. And so I believe like we have a lot of conversations around choosing and like what that even means, right? And like the thing is, I choose myself so deeply that because I choose myself, I would also choose a man who can stand in his autonomy and be in his power and bring, like, I want him to know we are of equal, right? There is no hierarchy. There is no, I don't need him. I want him. And I know that there is the same in that sense. And so then that surrender then comes from a trust. Like I trust him so deeply. And the reason I can trust him so deeply is because I trust myself so deeply. And so there's like this understanding and appreciation of both of those sides that I just wanted to touch on since you.
Yeah, I'll build on that too. I think this was, keep me honest, she does time better than I do, and I have a horrible memory. I think about 6 months into our relationship, maybe a little longer, she was like, let's write agreements. Let's like make agreements for our relationship. And I was like, a what? And when she explained it, and one of the first ones that we came up with, and the one that I still think rings true for us literally on a daily basis, is the agreement to call each other higher. And in a way that's like, look, if I see you like not being your authentic self, I'm gonna call you on it, like, and in a way that's loving and inviting and safe, and that's part of the magic of it too. And so, yeah, the idea of like, she chooses herself, I choose myself, and therefore we don't need each other, which is, I think, what you were getting at, Nick. Like, there's not a need, there's not a dependency there that creates this beautiful divine and masculine interaction where it's like, look, we can just be, and like, and I want you to be your highest and best, and I know you want that for me. And that creates this like really, really profoundly safe, trusting, deep, loving way to build a relationship, you know what I mean? And grow with someone, and be in a partnership with someone as well, which, I mean, God, to tie it back to the title of this episode, right? Like, that's what it's like dating a mystical woman. Is I've never felt more safe and invited, and like she has called out the masculine in me in a way that I've I literally didn't even know it was possible.
I want to
Yeah.
read this is a book called Awakening the Mystics.
Do
Yeah.
it. Yep. Bring it, Matt.
Really
Prime.
recommend.
Yeah.
He's from Encinitas. I had a
Cool.
session with him. And you guys keep talking about invitation, so I'm feeling the invitation to read this. It says, the mystic can hear the whispers of this invitation to initiation, echoing in his silent moments, in his dreams, in all the spaces, in all the conversations where the things are not being said. The mystic knows where something is missing, and that if he doesn't break through this invisible film, he will either fall back asleep in a mindless, soulless corporate culture cubicle farm, or he will drive himself mad, poisoned or unspent potential. It is me, it is now, I am the one. This is the declaration to the universe of sovereignty, of self-sufficiency, of independence.
Mm. Mm.
So the reason I'm bringing that I mean, I just want to recommend this book first and foremost. It's such an initiation to the mystic of today. But it's like if we can realize that we're not in a power pull. In fact, Nick and I do get into a power pull a lot, but that's our egos. And then we're like, oh, we're in ego again.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. But when we really remember that it's not about who's more in control or the leader. Like people often ask, like, who's the leader between the two of you? And there's no way of knowing that. Like there's no way of knowing where one begins and one ends, because we're creating this container that feeds itself. Like the way that I describe it to my friends is that who don't know about a healthy relationship is like it feeds itself. Everything from sex to just every single part of it feeds itself perpetually. Nothing is depleting it. Like everything is feeding it. All of my dreams are feeding it, and his dreams are feeding it, and we're just creating this like very power-packed container.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the unknowing, like Nadia and I have this, like, we have a 90-day rule, which is like if we're at a misalignment, a major misalignment, we don't just break up, right? It's no rash breakups. It's we take 90 days to really look at it. And we're in one right now, but I don't feel like I'm in the middle of a breakup. I feel like I'm going into deeper appreciation. I feel like I'm going into deeper trust and my own thing. So and that's what she's doing too, is like you said, instead of looking at me and be like, am I safe with him? She's like, I get to be safe with me. And there's just kind of like we're expand it's still feeding it, like even in that like unknown space, where I don't actually feel any, yeah, I don't feel any pressure at all. And this is a way to like awaken my own mystic of uh just seeing that like it's really the mind has its like its hallucinations, as I can best describe it. And it's like, why did I think that? Why did I create that meaning over there? Why did I make her mood about me? Like none of this makes sense. Why am I doing that? Why don't I just walk with God, trust myself, be kind and compassionate no matter what? And most of the time I do well, and other times there's still refinement. So calling each other hi in the right way is huge. And maybe that's what you guys experience too, is there's like inside there's a golden nugget for you to for your partner to refine, and it's coming in a ball of spikes of like, get us blah blah blah, you know. And it's not, you know, it doesn't work that way. So it's learning to be like, this is what I love about you already. This is what you're already doing amazing at. This is what I see, my potential I see in you. You don't have to do anything, and you could feel better this way, you know. So it's just kind of that communication piece. A segue into mystical women, because I saw Nadi playing with some aroma. Talk about how you guys engage the world of your senses, because I've encountered that there's not allowed to be overhead lights at nighttime. I've encountered that I'm not, you know, you can't wear any deodorants with high fragrance in it. The water needs to be purified of fluoride, of this, of that. So, and
What in the temple, dude? Think about what we're doing.
what? Yeah.
Think about what you're putting in the temple. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's also just seeing how much it affects you guys because you take in every sensation at a much higher, heavier, like more fuller. So if it's a good sensation, you guys are like, oh my God, like Nadia will smell a flower and be like, oh, like she just loves it. And if something's bad, she's like, oh, like somebody turn off that washing machine or something. Like, so how do you guys experience the world of your senses?
Yeah, can I take a first swing?
Yeah, hit it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh boy. Okay. I like to use examples because I think, you know, they illustrate points greater. Okay. So to be pretty vulnerable, like I've dealt with and have been living with a lot of fear lately. For context, I'm starting my own company. I'll be honest, I'm just pretty scared what's happening with the election and the country, and it feels like we're just going to hell in a handbasket. So I've lived with a lot of fear. And the other day I was working and feeling a lot of that fear. And Shannon came out and was just like, hey, dance with me. Like, to choose any song you want and dance with me. And first of all, talking about body intuition, my whole body was like, yep. Like, I was like, yep, I definitely need to do that. And we stood up and I chose Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran because I'm a bit of a romantic and like fucking love Disney movies. And we stood up and literally right next to in our little loft and we just danced for like 4 minutes, and it completely energetically changed like the state that I was in. I was literally in a place of fear and I felt small, and I was like, you know, what I tend to do is like overwork and I'll just, you know, pour it, I'll fix it. And the invitation to pause and feel and be in my body and, you know, recenter, that's what it is like dating a mystical woman, right? And then now multiply that and then with like incense everywhere and candles and sleep, you know, perspective and theta, like being in theta, and we meditate in the morning. And yeah, we made dinner together last night for Friday nights or our date nights. And I mean, like we talked about the food for like 2.5 hours because we were like, this is so fun. It was like 5 ingredients. It was like really simple to do together. And so
And the perfect bite. We created
yeah, we literally made the perfect bite for each other. And it's and actually I think I can really drill down into the nugget there of dating a mystical woman is like finding, you know, the fruit and the meaning of life. It's like sucking all of the juice out of life, because I'm gonna be honest, like old Steve was like, steak and salad, let's go. It had bacon in it too. Oh my God. And I would eat it in 7 seconds because, you know, time I was just like, I gotta eat like on the movie, like let's go to the next thing, you know, and have Shannon be like, hey, why don't we like make the perfect bite for each other? And let's, you know, and actually just to really tunnel on it, I was like, cool, awesome, I could totally do that. I was like, egg, bacon, a little bit thick, and it looked like a fucking disaster. And then I look over at Shannon's and like, I could literally have pinned it on the wall as artwork. Like it was beautifully crafted and like perfectly cut out. And it like looked like art, you know what I mean? And so I don't mean to ramble, but I just, it is this, it's this invitation to slow, you know, and pause and like remember, you know what I mean, and appreciate. And one of the first things Shannon said that like just rocked my shit was, I think she got it at Burning Man, if I remember right, was what is appreciated appreciates. I may have butchered it, but you know, they don't teach that in church, you know, and yeah, and I remember being like, God, that's just very profound. So to put a bow on it, yeah, dating a mystical woman is a very like sensory perception. You know, I feel like just literally what I hear, what I taste, what I experience of the world is just amplified and heightened because that's the world that she creates. You know, that's the world that she lives. That's her reality. And so to be in that orbit, to be a part of that reality yeah, I feel more alive now than I have in my entire life, you know, and I'm 40. What up? So
Yeah, that's like
I've
pure presence. When I enter Nadi's house, it is entering like a different time dimension to like actually feel my mind having to adjust
yeah.
to the slower pace of her home. And then when I leave, I hit about like right when Shannon, have you been here in Sarasota yet?
I haven't.
No. Okay, well the street right outside our house is called US 41, and it's always buzzing, and all of a sudden my mind's like, oh my God, there's like time and people are moving fast and I have to like reorient. So there is a certain, and that's this frequency, that is the frequency you two are emitting. So when we come into it, we're like, there's that integration in
Yeah.
time.
Can I throw this in there really quick? It's
Mhm.
about the time thing specifically, and this is definitely what it's like dating a mystical woman. Quick story, we had a fight, question mark. It was like really the only time I mean, it got like, but gosh, but it wasn't a fight. Like we weren't yelling at each other. It actually felt really healthy. And I'll do this part quickly. Bought a ticket, flew to Texas, totally surprised her, coordinated with a friend, and did this whole ceremony around money and I see you, and it was this whole thing. And she invited me to pause, and we just stared into each other's eyes for, well, the thing is, I literally don't know how much time it was, because I swear to God, time stopped. Like, and I'd never experienced anything like that. And she even positioned it in a way of like, let's try to be as present as possible and like be in this moment and not think about, what's happening tomorrow, even what's happening in the next second. You know what I mean? Just be here with me and like get lost in each other's eyes. And we did. And like, and we talk about this too. Like it's like seeing God. It's like stopping time. You know what I mean? It's a profoundly spiritual experience. And I'll never forget being like, oh yeah, like the time stopped. Like this is the most present I have ever felt in a single second of my life. Yeah, and again, they don't you don't get that in Sunday school. You know what I mean? They still do that. So it's profound in a way that, again, I would say is it opens, it expands. Like I think that's what God wants. Like when we talk about heaven on earth, like in my belief system, that's what that is. Like that's what that felt like to me, was this is what heaven's like. Like it's pure bliss and presence,
I completely agree with that. Heaven on earth is the frequency. I've been saying it for multiple years, many years, probably like 10 years, that heaven is on earth right here, right now, for whoever is ready and wanting to experience it. Do I always live in that space? Nick will definitely agree. No, I do not. I do not. I'm still trying to figure out the masculine structure of what it takes to be a human on this planet. But if I was to simmer down what it's like with Nick's question was about our senses, it's about being in ceremony like as often as possible. So it kind of feels like being on mushrooms kind of often.
That flow.
Nick and I did mushrooms. He's like, this is how you feel all the time? I'm like, oh yeah, this is my natural state. Like I'm good. Like we're good. Like I could do anything, whatever. So it's like smelling a flower is a ceremony, and eating the perfect bite, making the perfect bite is a ceremony. And Nick will eat in like also 7 seconds. And I used to say to him, like, wait. True, like, honest to God, you have to answer this honestly. Did you just taste that? Like, I'm just wondering, like, did you taste that? Because it's like just like a vacuum. And I literally blink and it's gone. And I'm just like, how did that happen? I don't get it because I'm chewing like 100 times a bite.
That's naughty.
So I'm gonna spend like at least double the time, if not triple the time, just eating the thing because I'm enjoying every single freaking sensation of it. It's like every piece of like, I guess I'm seeing life through so many different layers of senses. I definitely have synesthesia, so that's like multiple senses together. So if I'm hearing music, I'm also seeing it, I'm also tasting it. Like I'm just like all of my senses are linked up like that. When I'm in fear, this is not true. So none of them are linked up in fear. It's just a total chaos in that place. But when I'm not in that space and I can be in that timelessness, heaven on earth, it is a completely delightful ceremonial way of being. And my only challenge in life is how to stay there when there's also that other stuff of being on this planet. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I love that, Nadia. I'm like bathing in it because I feel so in resonance. Yeah, it's so interesting to think about this, the idea of like taking in our senses. I love this question and really like what that is. And I guess I haven't like sat to ponder it because I am in this mindful practice. And I feel like it awakens, and I think this is a great point actually, Nadi. I think the point is that we all have these gifts that we might not be aware of. And when we come to presence or a state of mindfulness, just like I always ask the question, how much can I surrender to this moment? How much can I really surrender to this moment right now? And if I have a lot of mind chatter in that moment for whatever's happening, then it's also like, okay, so let me take in my senses, like the immediacy of when my mind is going. And as a previous, like to give a little shadow, I know you, both of you know this, but my history is I had to always be on. My mom was very sick. I was an only child. I had to always be on. If things weren't happening where I felt like I was making sure I thought of 5 different ways to attack this, then things were going badly. Or at least that was the narrative, the story I had told myself. So being now in a
The
state of
patterning
so much,
always in your
yes.
head, yeah.
And so now being in a state of such surrender, it's like, I want to surrender. And so in my mind, because of old patterning and old conditioning comes on, is like, wait, whoa, you need to be doing this. Oh, did you get to this task? Blah, blah, blah. Then it's this moment where I recognize it and I'm like, oh, I need to come in. And so that coming into me means just literally closing my eyes and taking in the, okay, what do I hear? And like doing it from like, maybe it's the loudness of the traffic, but then to the minute of just the wind, right? It's like the big noises to the very, very finite little noises. And same as like, what am I feeling? Okay, well, I'm feeling the chair under my body, but I'm also feeling the lightness of my shirt. I'm feeling the wind or my hair as it wisps across my face. So it's like, it's these sensory depths, like you said, those depths. And then in that moment, I'm like, how many of these senses, once I've analyzed each one, once I've brought in each one into my field, it's then how many can I bring in at one time? And then that moment where even like 2, but like definitely when 3 are online, there is no more me in this body. I am now the wind. I am now this shirt. I am now. So it's like, it's this completely different sense where it's like, I almost am taken out of my current into this, just like you're saying, I can, when I'm tasting food, I'm also seeing the color of like, it's this space. So, and so it's almost like we're awake. And I would say I never felt this way before. Like I didn't feel this way before. So it's awakening the power that was always within us and now gets to be experienced is like what I feel like bathing in the sensory perception is. It's unlocking this door that I never even knew was a door that existed to my now next evolution. And being able to start to feel and hear and sense things in a way that I could never have imagined was possible.
Can I share for me? This will be very
Oh,
quick.
That was so stunning. That was so beautiful.
Yeah.
This is actually literally the dinner where I started declaring my undying love for Shannon. I went first. And we had this amazing, it was like a kind of Tex-Mex meal. And I ate mine so quickly because it was so good. I was like, get it in my mouth. And then
Completion.
yeah, and then I like looked up at Shannon's plate and literally I was like, oh, do you not like it? Because there was so much left, right? And then I kind of watched, like just observed and saw her, take the bite, and she would just sit back in her chair and just be like, like just, and she was able to tell me like every nook and cranny. And it was this, I mean, I literally fell in love with her more that night, because it helped me understand, like, literally the waiter would come over and be like, do you like your meal? I'm like, yeah, it was dope. And like, that's all I could say, you know what I mean? Where Shannon would be like, the texture of the fish and the line of the skin and the way it holds the meat of the, like she could literally describe it so much better because she took the time to appreciate it. And again, not to bring in my belief system, but I believe that's how God would, well, I mean, anyone should experience life because the appreciation that it gives you is just so much greater, right? Like, yeah, in my mind, I'm like, that was a good meal. And Shannon's mind, she's like, I experienced earth, you know what I mean? And like love and like, life. And so it's profound, honestly. And in a way, Nick, I bet you can laugh at this. Like there's times where I'm like, will you just eat your food because the movie is going to start in 10 minutes. So we got to go. You know what I mean? Like there's times where it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think my my answer to Naughty all the time is just like, I just like it when things are complete. So I'll tell you all the textures of what it's like to have a full belly. That's my favorite thing to do.
My favorite.
The the
My,
like I like to hold on. I get to move because there's a lot of commotion going on in my house, so I'm gonna move
oh yeah,
my I'm gonna move outside for a second. Um, but yeah, I just love completion energy, and I love I'm gonna step outside. I love the feeling of having the food in my belly and
Mhm.
satisfied versus um versus just like I'm still hungry, like I gotta eat it. But what you're talking about too is in the Radiant Sutras book. It's like this old Indian text that's been translated, and it's God talking and giving all this advice, and it's talking about how to experience God in every moment, in a song,
Beautiful.
in
Yeah.
your senses, in an orgasm, in a piece of food. So in a way, I've been on my own journey with that. I just kind of like, because I'm still me, I kind of compartmentalize of like which experiences do I really want to deepen. I'm like, well, I don't really want to deepen into this cauliflower right now. I just want to eat the cauliflower. But I really want to deepen in, like a kiss with Naughty. I want those moments to expand and become timeless. And what Nadi, you said something, and so did you, Shannon, about bringing them together. Like, how do you come back to the real world when it's so easy to kind of like bypass the real world and just want to stay there?
Mm.
And I just noticed that, like, when I was a medic in the military, through training is how I learned to have a sense of calm in taking in my environment, even in the chaos. So I think this is a trained skill, and this is what the yogis do. They train themselves day in and day out. And maybe even in the Bible, now that I have multiple perspectives, I'm like, it's very clear to me that Jesus had trained his mind. Those 40 days in the desert was a training. Those Moses, like we think he was just showed up like a perfect leader. No, he was trained in the house of Pharaoh. He was trained in war. He was trained in leadership. He was trained in all these things. So learning to take in the world that deeply while moving fast but internally slow, and the
Uh,
yogis would call that being an inner monk in a normal world. So
yeah.
it's definitely possible to do that. And then the moments when you have it, like you said, a time and a place, like the time and place to deepen in, for me, like my kids know, is not when we're 5 minutes about to leave the door. Like we're gotta go, school's about to start. I get to be somewhere too. But there is a time to do it, to sit and be like, what are you feeling right now? What's in your body? And I'll usually do that in the car. So if the kids are going through something, I'm like, let's get to the car and then you can tell me what you're feeling.
Mhm.
So
Um,
Nadi's experiencing that with me, that I can kind of like be like, we'll get to the somatic in a moment. Right now, we get there. We have places to be. There's stuff going around. There's kids yelling right now. I cannot right now. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah. Sorry. I we watched The Chosen together. Highly recommend if you haven't. And one of my, well, God, watching that show with the Mystic Woman, first of all, is just, oh my God, it's like, it's mind
watching
blowing.
anything with the Mystic Woman.
Yeah, literally any. We watched Gladiator last night.
Watch Kung Fu Panda and you'll have a whole
For
treatise on
sure.
life.
Yeah, the amount, well, literally pause and it's, parts work or shadow work or whatever. Like she just can, it's like literally watching movies for the first time. And the what I wanted to highlight on that you said there, Nick, was one of my favorite things that they show in The Chosen is how frequently Jesus is just like, I gotta go be on my own. Like I'm gonna leave you guys. And we know from the Gospels that that's time that he spends going within and slowing down and like being in the presence of God in prayer. And I just love that. I love that that's something that they show. And before he performs literally any of the miracles, he always, every time, pauses, and goes within and like and holds and stops and remembers, and like there is this channeling of it, to use the mystic word that I've loved how they have portrayed that. And again, Shannon has like given this whole new vocabulary and understanding to how Jesus conducted himself. You know what I mean? Like the way that he showed, like living without fear and going within, and being mirrors for the disciples, and it's been, yeah, just fascinating. But specifically about the invitation to pause and remember and go within and feel, which is, yeah, I think the Jesus that the magic that Jesus saw, and it is also the magic of dating a mystical woman.
So a new segue. This is going to be a fun one for Shannon and Nadi. So we obviously can see all these. I mean, I feel like we're going to do a part 2 because this is like we've only touched on like 2 major things, and going along with the theme, you cannot just overlook it. So what would you say are some of the benefits you guys have experienced in dating a quote unquote non-mystical man? I think him and I experience our own mysticism within as we get to know you, but like also we're holding our firm, like we're holding our own inner knowing and our own wisdom. So what are the benefits of that, and what do you think some of the shadows are of like being so into like what, and by shadows I mean what are things that kind of get you trapped in the flow, or trapped in the sense, or trapped in the slowdown?
Wow.
Oh, that's a good question, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jones, yes.
I can give, I feel something came right online with the second piece. I'll play with the first piece in a second. So I'll go from here. The slowdown trap. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. And so, wow, there's like layers there. So one of the pieces of like, when it's coming down to like slowing down, I do believe in this sense of like time actually stopping. Like there's a lot of times that I'll start to take in my senses, and I'll like come back into my body and I'll look at the time and it's like no time has passed. And the difference there is like, depending on, again, how much did I surrender to that moment, where maybe if I'm really on a to-do list, I have a lot going on, and I actually notice that I'm starting to show a pattern of overwork, which used to be an old conditioned pattern of mine. Then when I have that moment and I'm like, oh, I want to actually come back into my body because I'm noticing that I'm going into a conditioned state, that space, I still lean in with all my senses. And when I come out, I feel better, meaning my frequency feels ready to tackle whatever creative stuff I was on. And I wouldn't say that the amount of time passes as fast. So there's like this distinction between when slowing down is coming as almost a mechanism to challenge myself from an old conditioned state, that therefore there can be, I think it's healthy, first of all, and there can be like where I might end up getting lost in time, which then can actually invoke me judging myself later. So like, so it's a dicey little space on both sides of like really coming back to the mind and being okay, like knowing that time was necessary for my next growth, my next creative expansion. And so there's like a little work that has to go in. So I think the challenge is, and maybe actually this is really where it comes more from, being with Steve and telling him, I'm going to go, or I need to feel into my body. I'm not making any moved actions until I know what's coming through. And that just comes on its own. Like, I don't know when the next download's going to come. I don't know when the next gnosis is online. Like, I'm not here for that. And the more I pressure it, the more I'm like, I need to have this. I need to have this. That's not going to come. I'm literally shutting off my channel. My channel is like, sorry, girl, this ain't happening. So there's like this appreciation of like being with a man and having him be in this like, well, wait, where's your action plan? What's your 1-year timeline? What's this, especially like I'm starting my own business, right? What does this look like? And he is such a struggling CEO of this company. And he's like, I see all these things, Jen, I don't see, how are you, what is happening here? And so it's been this like challenge. It's been this challenge of like wanting him to see me, and which has been really cool for me to validate myself, of like, my old relationships would have been like, I want you to see me. Okay, I'll stop. I'm just not going to listen to my intuition. You're right. Maybe I should come up with a plan. Okay, I'm going to do this thing. And noticing myself go into that space of like, oh, I want you to see that, like, I'm hearing you and I want to follow what's right for, you're right. Like, maybe I'm not thinking enough. Like, maybe I'm not putting enough into my logic mind. Maybe I've completely gone to the divine feminine. I've lost my divine masculine altogether. And then noticing me wanting to do that because I want him to see that I'm honoring him and I believe in what he's saying. And then being like, but Shannon, that's not your truth. And so it's this interesting balance. Like, it is this balance, especially in the beginning, of like coming back to self, like coming back in that space of like, who am I? What do I stand for? And then what I've been doing is tracking, which has been really helpful. So when an idea comes online, I like write it, especially to see like, did it go the way that I like, okay, I was called to do this. It made no logical sense. Cool. But I did it because I'm following my intuition. And then all of a sudden the right person, place, thing, like it just aligned. And the rest of the day was like wild and magical. And I was like, whoa, this is nutty. And then I'll like track that, right? Okay, when I followed this nudge, and here is actually what it felt somatically, like physiologically, this is my sacred yes. Cool. Okay, I got that. But it's been like slowly crafting to that, to the degree that now, well, Steve totally has actually tasted that. So it's a different level. And before he tasted what I now am tasting, and there was like this like misunderstanding of it, I still would choose me because I saw the results that were continuing to give me the gift of, yeah, that's right. Keep listening to yourself. I know this doesn't make sense. Keep listening to yourself. And so then it would be this moment where it'd be like, and Steve, like, look at this, until he finally experienced it that day that he came to me and we had what I guess say our first fight, but our first emotionally charged conversation is actually really what it felt like.
Yeah.
Because I was naming, I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling angry. I want to scream right now. I feel unseen. And I know this is a me thing, not a you thing. And I'm thankful that you're saying these things so that I can hear your reality. But like, I was like letting his voice be heard and also feel like I wanted to stop the car and like scream. Like I was like, but like also I didn't, because I wanted him to like be able to finish where his sentence was, be able to finish his understanding of what he was seeing and receiving. And then of course, as always, it was the invitation of like, how did that feel in your body? And then me being like, I feel angry, I feel hurt, I feel unseen. And so anyways, when he flew out, it was really yummy because I literally cried. Well, for many reasons, I was literally shocked that he was in front of me. And from the appreciation that afterwards, like, Shannon, I have to tell you how I got here, because it came to him. It was his gnosis. He's in church Sunday. We have this deep conversation. We get off the phone in a full loving way. Like I was like, I need to go. I had a big meeting with a collaborator and I'm like, I need to go scream. I need to come back to myself. I love you. Thank you so much. We will have a deeper conversation on this when I have space and time. And so he left and he just sitting in church and he's like, I gotta go see her. I gotta go see her. And from the moment he chose that, the plane flight worked out perfect. Like the amount of synchronicity. He said he literally was in the airport and it was like Matrix Neo. Like people were just perfectly moving out of his way. The cab came at the right time. Like everything was just like divine, 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 divine.
I met a woman whose son was dying. She was like on her way, and I got to pray with her, like in a way that, yeah, it was just all feel, the whole thing.
Literally. And so when he got to me and we had this ceremony that he had planned for me, he was like, I get it, Shannon. Like, I get it. I get when you say that when you just listen, everything falls into place. Like, I get it. And that was the first time, like, even like feeling it now, like that I felt seen. Like there was this moment of, because sometimes you feel a little crazy. Like, I don't know how nutty feels, but sometimes.
Look at her face. He's like, yeah, I get it.
Girlfriend feels a little nutty.
Damn muggles around here. What the heck?
Am I the one that's wrong? Am I doing it wrong?
Yes.
But then you experience it, you're like, but this is divine. Like,
yes.
There's providence here. Yeah,
yes.
My favorite verse is Jeremiah 29:11. And when that happens, I was walking through the airport. I was like, oh my God, I've never experienced anything like this before.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
And so it was finally being seen. And that was at January. We've been dating since last May. So like that's like a wild appreciation. And like before that January moment, I mean, it was like kind of these moments of just like, I don't get your strategy of how you're making this work. Like, I want to like, and always steel manning me, like always really curious, really intrigued, like never making me feel small by any means. And it was just like this, like, there was just a dissonance. There was this, like, I do not operate.
Where's
and
the
then
business plan.
Yeah. And then that moment that it hit him, it was like, oh, like, and then for me, it was just like, I feel so seen. Like it was the first moment of just like, I can be in this. And now I don't have to explain myself anymore or feel like I have to like make sure he knows why I'm doing this thing. And so it was this huge change. And I would say, in the beginning, it was challenging. It was challenging to stay also in my truth and to not go back to an old conditioned state of just like, you're right, you're doing this, you're obviously succeeding in this. I'm not in my success yet. So like, am I doing something wrong? Like it was like levels of that. And so I think that was probably the biggest challenges in the beginning that led to now the most beautiful gifts. And now Steve waits until he's also a projector. So it's yummy. So he gets to use, we get mirrors for each other. And it's like this place of like, Steve, when you're being, that's when people are coming to you. Like, think about when you're the difference between like getting the investors when you're like in this like, hey, versus like when you're just like, hey, I'm Steve, this is what I stand for, this is what I love, this is what I believe in. And like watching the people just adjust to him in a state of being versus a state of urgency. And so it's been really, really fun to play with that.
Yeah,
More
totally.
time.
That's definitely an experience I've been having as of late as I took on figure modeling for artists. And it's just like, oh, I can just follow my joy. I can ask God, how do I want to play in life, not how do I want to work in life? And it's definitely a difference of how I show up in the relationship. What you're describing too is um I don't know if Nadi and I have had something similar, but I feel like we've always tried to meet each other in the middle. It's like, okay, so what is the balance point between ultimate flow? Because ultimate flow is chaos and ultimate order is tyranny. So where's our balance point? And you know, it's kind of like, hey, I'm totally down for you listening to Spirit, but like if you feel like Spirit's telling you to like just to move to France and we have a child together and you're just gonna like take our child, like we're gonna like talk about it though, right? You're not just gonna go do that. Like there's like this like we're gonna have some sort of order that actually works for people. And then it's like, oh yeah, I didn't mean that. Like, and that's just what you know, I think when you're steeped in order, any type of talk of disorder automatically goes to the worst case scenario. Nadi, what have like you experienced? Like what benefits do you have from this? You know, our relationship, how's it benefited you? And what are your own traps in your own mind as you're like deepening into your mysticism?
Oh my God. I had an answer, but that was like so long ago and now I'm in a different place.
Yeah.
Typical. Yeah.
Well, first you get to stare at that handsome face, so that's good.
He's just getting more handsome, so that's amazing. And he's, by the way, like really initiated himself into his own mystic. So this isn't even like a conversation about me being the mystic and him not, because actually now he is, and like he's reflecting back mysticism to me, wisdom to me, that's just like absolutely deeply profound, like deeply wise. So but to answer the question, the biggest challenge for me is Shannon, what you were just saying about like feeling seen. At the beginning, for a while, I didn't feel seen, and I was having to fight to protect I mean, I thought that I had to fight to protect my inner knowing. I didn't have to, but my militarized system felt that way and still goes into that. But it's this like fear state where I kind of just like surround myself and almost like make him out to be an enemy. Like I have to
Agent Smith.
my own, yeah, like I have to hear my own voice. Get out of here. Like his energy is very big. He's got very, very strong energy. And I being very porous is like it's like you need to go home and be in your own energy field, and I need to be in my own energy field, and I have to rehear my own wisdom, because like if I don't follow that track, I get really scared that I mean, now I'm in a different place with this. Now I feel like I don't have to walk so carefully. I can kind of recognize that I'm held in a way bigger way than I thought at first. But as the mystic starts to kind of cultivate these powers, there's a level of protection over the gnosis that's really required. But to answer the question about how it's worked with Nick, to be with Nick, is like he has reflected back to me who I am in a way that I didn't get. I didn't understand what's coming online for me because I'm so in it. I'm so in it. So to have him be that reflector to me and just be like, oh, this is, and he's just kind of narrating. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how it is. Like, I feel so seen. So in another way, I've felt extremely seen, actually, because even when he didn't have that physical experience of being in the flow or in the zone or whatever, locked and loaded, I don't tuned in, tapped in, turned on, before he had that experience, he still had a really cool way of recognizing what I was doing, and like recognizing that when he comes to my house, there's a different kind of presence here, and recognizing what's really hard for me. So he's really helped me categorize like my whereabouts, that yeah, you're right, these things are hard for me. And he tracks, like this guy is like a tracker. This dude's a tracker. He's like, he's the guy that's in the forest, like with the like looking at the animal footprints and stuff. He's like watching me very closely, being like, okay, this is a common pattern, this just happened again, you had this happen on July 16th of, like, he knows exactly the date that it happened. And and he's held such profound space, almost like a life coach, I call him sometimes. Like, he's been such a profound beat of my journey that reminds me how powerful I am, because he does, just like how Stephen, you were really honoring Shannon and the power that you experience in her. He does that for me, and that is so profound, to be with someone else and have them see that level of power. It's like, oh, I guess I'm not crazy, but sometimes I definitely do feel crazy, and that's when I start fighting him to reclaim my sanity. But he reminds me how powerful I am and how I am divine and I'm a goddess and I'm God. And recently I did another one of my militarized like spikes at him. I was just like, I can't even be with you because I have to be alone. Like, I got into this, fear state, and he took all of my arrows. I was like shooting arrow after arrow at him. It was just like literally shots fired, like literal shots fired. And because of the mystic that he now is, he would have never have been able to handle this at the beginning of our relationship. But now, who he is now, Nick, you're right here in front of me, I'm talking about you in third person, but who you are now is someone who just deeply anchors and just says such a quick remark that's like, you're God. Like, reminds me that, like, don't you remember that you're God and that none of this is real and that there's nothing to be afraid of? And I'm just like, oh my God, it just brings the whole fear thing down. So I guess all in all, I could say the best thing about being with you, Nick, is that you remind me that I'm powerful, that I'm God, and that there's nothing really to be afraid of. And I can keep doing my work, and all is well.
Well, thank you for that. I think what helped me at the beginning is I've wanted to be a therapist for like the past 5 years. And so it's like I've been practicing this whole time listening. And now it feels like a superpower. Now, if I really look back on it, I'm like, oh, it's a superpower, is that even without energetic goggles or mystical goggles, I could hear her enough to be and like draw correlations and see the pattern. So this brings me to just one of my bigger points. Like, I don't even want to separate what's divine and what's not. Like, the 3D world, like, it's all God consciousness. It's all here right now. It just depends on what dimension you're experiencing it. And I think part of a man's inner knowing, a man's inner wisdom in how it manifests in that order, and you need to have a plan. Hey, did you check your budget? Did you meet this person? Is that divine reminder, like, hey, there is a plan here. There is order. There are pillars holding everything up. So even if it looks like we're going to hell in a handbasket, it doesn't matter, because hell is one small, heaven's bigger. So yeah, this is great.
The last year I read David Dita's Way of the Superior Man, and that book definitely changed some stuff. And it's what I love hearing about your story. It's very much so a reflection of our own. It helped me understand the idea of the divine masculine as a container. We've used that word a lot, right? It provides, and if you think of what a container is, it literally holds things, right? And then by interestingly not contrast, I would say in the yin and yang sense, right? The divine feminine is meant to be flow and creative. God, we spent last weekend in Yosemite, and I remember feeling like this divine, like that Mama Gaia when you say that, right? Like flow, and it's water, and it's creative, and it's not chaos, it's beauty, right? And hearing you guys talk through that, like that's very much what you're playing with, is this divine masculine that can hold the divine feminine. And Nick, I love when you said like we're trying to find that balance. I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it is, right? There is this balance between the divine masculine and divine feminine, and when both, I think, are in the divine, they call the other forward, right? I also read Warrior, King, Prince, Magician, right? That you know, that was a whole, like, understanding myself as like those are kind of the four parts of the divine masculine was first of all very profound for me, and then again, second of all, to be with a woman that invites and like encourages and wants to see those four parts in me is very countercultural, like not at all. You know, as a straight white man, I felt like the bad guy for about the last 10 years. You know what I mean? Like I can't be in my kingship, definitely can't be in my magician. You know what I mean? Warrior, nope, what, right? And now I'm like doing jujitsu and shit, you know, and like she welcomes that and she invites that. And so it's interesting to think that like the structure, or for Nadia to name you, Nick, as like a hunter, like he sees patterns, like, yeah, because that is, I think, in a way what the divine masculine is supposed to do. It's like it has this structure. And yes, Nadia, for you to name, like, he's been a reflection for me. Like I've seen things of myself where like, well, wait a minute, like, yeah, that's also part of it. You know what I mean? And there's that balancing act there that I think is so beautiful, that the mystic woman lives in, of like, yes, this free flowing, like, oh my God, it's like the most beautiful thing ever. Like it's literally God in nature in a way, right? Of like this beautiful, creative, flowing energy. That's just, you know, magical to be a part of in the balancing sense, you know, which I see like oozing out of the two of you, you know, because
And what's fun is learning that divine masculine feminine is actually also inside.
yeah, oh my gosh.
So Shannon and Nadi are also locating their inner masculine by experiencing us, because whatever's happening out there is just what's happening in here, and then vice versa. My nurturing, my, you know, my caring, my ability to surrender, that's my own inner feminine that I get to explore.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we were literally laughing last night about the recognition. This is slightly embarrassing for me to admit. I've literally cried every day for what it's been months, like the last 8 months. I've cried every single day because how safe I feel, and that, not to say crying is feminine, but like in the sense that I'm in touch with my emotions and feel very safe in doing that, and will cry hysterically in front of her and not feel embarrassed. I feel invited, like she literally welcome. Actually, genuinely, she'll be like, "This is really turning me on. It's like really working."
I know, right?
I'm like, wait, what? You know what I mean? And like, think of the safety there, and that's the beauty of the divine feminine too, is because she welcomes me to feel into my feminine, you know, and I think that's the point you're making, Nick, is like it's not just like I'm only masculine and she's only feminine. There is a balance, and we invite the opposite out of each other as well.
Because sometimes I need to be seen, in my sadness, and then sometimes I need to do a rear naked choke on somebody, and that's just the balance. So, and you know, these ladies love to flow, and sometimes they get to like root deep and be like, I am going to consistently show up this way, however.
In the masculine, healthy way, right? Like, and that's beautiful, like uncompromising, unconditional. We're gonna dance, and you're gonna get out of this overwhelmed state. Like, come fucking dance with me. You know what I mean? Like, there's masculine energy there too, in a beautiful way. Yeah.
And we talked about motherhood, and I was like, Nadi, every experience that I have of a mother's, they're very consistent. The ones that are there for their children show up every day, rain or shine. They don't always get a chance to flow with their inner knowing. They're flowing with this outer being that can't hold their head up without them. So it's just learning, like, that's also a piece of the masculine that's within, to say like, oh, to show up consistently for something bigger than myself.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And this conversation is actually making me go deeper on one of the questions of like the challenges, and also something beautiful out of it. I definitely would say like I had a wounded masculine because of the fact that I had to create a structure, because structure wasn't created for me. And therefore I took on this, like, I have to make sure mom's safe. If I'm literally not taking care of these things, mom is gonna die, I'm gonna die. That was like the story of the narrative based on just my experiences in life. And so that being said, I also, though, was still learning from a woman who was very people pleaser, was very like others come first. And so here I am in my masculine, but also seeing that aspect. And so there was this one time where we rented an Airbnb together,
Like,
and it really allowed, I cried over this because there was this understanding of like, it was, first of all, we just wanted to have a hot shower. We were like out and about. It's Austin. It's like 100 and some degrees outside, right? And we were transitioning, and we had a big day of like hiking and kind of being outside. And so we get there and I'm like, I'm so ready for a shower. Oh, this is gonna be great. And I noticed that there's a leak first, just from the ceiling in general, which, okay, cool, no big deal. But then we go to get in the shower and it is like a drip. It's not a shot. Like there is, and I was like, oh, no. Oh, and so like, I'm just gonna write to them and let them know, just so they're aware. And I was like, but dang, like we paid for, like I was having a moment, right? And so I read him my thing, and of course it was just like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that there was a leak, and that also the shower's not working. I don't know what you want to do about this. And Steve's like, wait, do you
we're
want
really
money?
gracious and we love the place. And oh my gosh, it's so great.
He's like, are you wanting money back from this? Like, is that a thing that you might want? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah. And he's like, that is not how you would write that, Shannon. And I was like, well, I don't want them to think like I'm thankful. And he's like, what? And so it was this like really interesting space of like, it was so simple, but the point of it was I had never had a male figure in my life who had showed me like, this is how you do it, and still be in integrity. And I'm still being kind. It wasn't, but in my mind, I'm like, if I say it like that sounds cutthroat. That's mean, right? Like, is that's not going to get me anywhere. And it was this like re-energization that really hit me. Like it allowed, through him being in his divine masculine and wording it and just being like, just direction. This is direct conversation. And me like sitting with that and being like, that's okay. Okay, cool. But it brought me to different time points in my life where I hadn't been in my divine masculine power because I didn't want someone to see, and I didn't even know what a representation of that would be. So here, and he's a father, so like even that side of it, like I get to see the way he shows up for his kids in this beautiful way that I'm like, wow, so profound. Because my dad didn't show up for me like that. I didn't have a father figure to show up in that way. And though I had beautiful angels in my life, like father figures, just to have that representation was really big and allowed me to see just so many places where I would have never known to be in that power because I never had it demonstrated to me. So I just wanted to add that, since you guys were talking about kind of.
Can I build on that too? It's interesting. I'm gonna be a little vulnerable. If anything, I kind of spoil my kids. Like we went through divorce, and I just love them dearly. And we go to Walmart and they're like, "Can I buy this? Can I buy this?" And I'm like, "Yes, I love you so much. Oh my God." So like but that's a huge mirror, right? I mean, I've literally seen Shannon look at my kids and be like, "You guys are spoiled AF. Like, clean your shit up." What? Oh my God! When I was a kid, I made dinner. You know what I mean? Like it was. And that's a really interesting, when you think of it again as the divine and masculine, it's a really interesting re-narratization for her of like, oh, wait, this is what provision and safety and like a fatherly masculine container looks like. Is, hey, I don't care if a bear comes through that door, kids get behind me, daddy's gonna go fight. Like that, there's that masculine energy there. And then and the same way it's healing for me to realize like, oh wait, yeah, I'm spoiling my kids. Like I need to give them more responsibility. You know what I mean? And it's a mirror back as well. You know what I mean? Of like her, because she's healed her divine masculine, she's able to show up and like said hard shit to me. Like I pride myself in being a good dad. It's like part of my identity. Like I want to be an amazing father, right? And to hear her say like, hey, let's maybe let the kids do the dishes. You know what I mean? Like you don't need so it was like wild for me too, but again, in a way that's really healthy and inviting and safe.
Yeah, I love
Amazing.
that. I love how part of this conversation is that we're not arriving anywhere. It's not like, and now we've arrived. It's like these constant tweaks and wonderings and conversations and nuance and communication.
You have to have that with the mystical woman. You can't have a relationship. With my 8 minutes left here, for anyone that I can sum it all up, you cannot have a relationship without nuance and a lot of communication and a lot of patience to tweak. And that's on both sides, because you two could easily be like, you're not magic. Like, I'm gonna go dance in the forest with my friends and like whatever. Like, you could be totally dismissive of anything there, but there's a choice that's happening that's like, oh, well, I see you. I love you. And now I'm willing to go into the nuance of places that you might have never thought you would go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that brought up such another great story, literally dancing in the forest. Shannon went to Electric Forest a couple weeks ago. And we've been together a little over a year now. And oh my gosh, okay, I'll try to do it quickly. So it's literally dancing in the forest, right? And she ran into her ex, like her 7-year ex. And it was a profound experience for me to be genuinely only excited for her. Like I didn't feel any fear. I wasn't like, wait, did you get back with him? Like there was just none of that. And what prompted for me too, Nick, was like there is this constant always, being called higher, like you have to have patience and you have to be willing to tweak and you have to be willing to do the work if you're dating a mystical woman because of situations like that. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, well, here's literally a test of our trust in each other and I get our faith and to be put in that place and with previous partners or whatever, like I would definitely be like, well, wait, well, how did it go? Like, what did he say? Oh my God, like there would be fear there, you know what I mean? But instead, because of the way that she showed up and told me about it in a way that I knew she would tell me the truth, A, and then B, I also know Shannon so completely that like I just not once did I have this worry that like anything would happen there. And I was only like, oh my God, like this is going to be unbelievably healing for you. I can't wait to hear about it. And that again, I mean, bring it back to like dating a mystical woman. There is definitely something in there that like dating a mystical woman like Shannon, I have so much faith and trust in her as a person. Like there's a gnosis because I see her, I know who she is, that she could literally run naked into a field of 100 guys that are like gladiator warriors. And I'd be like, we're good. I mean, I have a good time. I'll see you when you're done. Like, I can't wait to hear about it. Awesome. You know what I mean? Like I literally have that much trust and faith in her. Because she's mystical, because she's so divine and like knows her within and we're so open and have facilitated so much trust and we say radical honesty all the time. And I think to your point, Nick, like, yeah, that's a piece of it, is like this willingness to live in that space of like extreme vulnerability and authenticity and radical honesty.
Yeah, radical honesty is not always. Oh, let me be careful with my words.
Be
Radical
careful.
honesty can really bring on a lot of sensation. That would be. I'm practicing. I've been reading this book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and it's all
Ooh,
about the words you use. So I'm really careful not to do anything that's like calling in more of what I don't want. So I don't want to call that experience hard or painful or anything, but there's a sensation, and
Mhm.
that sensation does a lot to the body and the mind. So, but at the end, like you said, there's a growth that happens, and at the same time, there's always choice, and that's the ultimate resilience. As I get thunder behind me, is that I don't even need to trust Nadi. I get to just trust the God that is always present, and to know like if there is an uncoupling, if there is 100 gladiator warriors, like whether that's painful, whether that's easeful, I don't really know, but I get to trust that I'm walking with God no matter what, and so is she. So that there's contracts there that maybe we don't know about in the soul.
yeah, well said.
Nadi, you love. Do you want to have the last word for this podcast,
Yeah,
or
Yeah.
how do you usually do
I
it?
want to read this other thing from this book, Awakening the Mystic. The mystic seeks to be catapulted into the heart of the divine, to lie on the floor of the forest and allow the moss to fully envelop him, to see his lover so fully and deeply he becomes confused if it is self or other. These mystical union experiences are available. I wanted to say that mostly because it's a throwback to when I met Shannon and we were literally laying on the mossy floor, allowing it to
Oh
envelop
my God.
us. And now both of us are in a relationship where we're experiencing that in our relationship. And I just think that's absolute magic. And I'm just so, I like to wrap this podcast up with gratitude. I'm so grateful to see my dear friend Shannon with such a man that honors her and that up levels your life. And I just see so much groundedness in Shannon. Like Shannon, we haven't even tapped into the wealth of
Part
genius
two.
that she holds. Like we could just do a whole
Part
podcast
two.
just about
Part
like literal just zoom in on Shannon because she's so absolutely epic. And to see her find someone that actually sees that level and is that grateful for it. And I'm just like, I am overjoyed. I am so overjoyed that my dear Shannon has someone like you, Stephen, and that you get to have someone like her in your life. It's
Wait,
like,
great. I mean, I get her too. So.
yeah, it's but the fact that you're so excited by that, that's what I'm so like, I'm so overjoyed by that. So yeah, that's what I just want to add, and anyone else can have the last word. I don't need it. We've got 2 more minutes.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I think there'll be a part 2, 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, and thank you for your openness, your vulnerability, and everything with it.
Yeah.
I love you guys. Seriously. Just the idea of being with you. I mean, I said this to Nadi, which is like at the end of our time together when I first met her, I was like, it's an honor to remember you. It's an honor to see you again in this lifetime. Like I see you. And so it has been just such an honor and pleasure, and being able to continue to grow together in this. And then, I mean, there's been so many crazy parallels. Like I remember when we were in the dating scene on the road and Nick, your name was brought up, right? Like it's just really cool. And so to now have these conversations with both of you and to see your growth and what you're stepping into, it makes me delighted and excited. And I am just honored to be able to have these chats with you guys and to be able to be in that humble space and invite each other forward. So thank you. I love you guys so
Thank you.
Mhm.
Love you.
So much too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
Bye.
In the next one.
yes.
See you in the next one.
It will be a series.
Yes,
Right.
we're here for it.